Imagine a world where gods walked among men, where mighty warriors sailed across endless seas, and where the whispers of ancient myths shaped the stars above. Welcome to the enchanting realm of Viking mythology, a place filled with breathtaking stories of bravery, wisdom, and magic. In today's video, we'll take a journey through some of the most captivating Viking tales ever told, stories designed not just to fascinate, but to bring you a sense of peace and relaxation as you drift into a restful sleep. These tales of Norse gods, brave warriors, and mythical creatures will transport you to a serene world of imagination and wonder. So, find a cozy spot, let go of the day's stress, and allow these timeless legends to carry you away. The creation of the world. Our journey begins at the very start of time, in the great void called Ginnungagap. This vast emptiness existed before anything else. To the north, there was the icy realm of Niflheim, and to the south, the fiery land of Muspelheim. When the heat from Muspelheim met the frost of Niflheim, the first being was created, a giant named Ymir. Ymir was enormous and powerful, and from his body, new life began. As he slept, more giants emerged from his sweat, and a cow named Audhumla appeared. The cow provided milk for Ymir to drink, but she also licked the salty ice, slowly uncovering another being, Buri, the ancestor of the gods. Buri's grandson, Odin, along with his brothers Vili and Vi, decided to create a new world. They defeated Ymir, and from his body, they shaped the earth. His blood became the seas, his bones the mountains, and his skull the sky. They even placed Ymir's eyebrows around the world to protect it from the chaotic giants. Thus, the world of humans and gods was born, a place full of beauty and mystery. The creation of humans. Once the world was formed, the gods felt something was missing. Walking along a beach, Odin, Vili, and Vi found two lifeless pieces of wood washed ashore. Odin gave them the breath of life, Vili gave them intelligence, and Vi gave them senses and speech. These two pieces of wood became the first humans, Ask and Embla. The gods created Midgard, a beautiful realm surrounded by a great ocean, as a home for Ask and Embla. They also built a magical bridge, the Bifrost, to connect Midgard to Asgard, the realm of the gods. This was the beginning of humanity's relationship with the divine. Thor's adventures, the tale of the giant's cauldron. Thor, the god of thunder, was known for his strength and courage. One of his most amusing adventures involved a quest to find a giant cauldron big enough to brew ale for all the gods. Thor and his clever companion Loki set out to the home of the giant Hymir, who owned the cauldron. Hymir was not pleased to see them and challenged Thor to prove his strength. Thor amazed the giant by catching a massive serpent in the sea and later smashing an unbreakable goblet with his powerful throw. Despite the challenges, Thor eventually secured the cauldron and brought it back to Asgard, where the gods celebrated with a feast. Loki's mischief, the theft of Idun's apples. Loki, the trickster god, was both friend and foe to the gods of Asgard. In one of his mischief-filled tales, Loki caused trouble by helping a giant steal Idun, the goddess who guarded magical apples that kept the gods young. Without Idun and her apples, the gods began to age rapidly. Realizing his mistake, Loki transformed into a falcon and flew to the giant's castle to rescue her. He tricked the giant, turned Idun into a small nut, and carried her back to Asgard. Once the apples were returned, the gods regained their youth, and Loki, despite his troublemaking, was forgiven, at least for a time. The love story of Freyja and the Brisingamen necklace. Freyja, the goddess of love and beauty, was known for her grace and charm. One day, she came across four dwarves crafting a dazzling necklace called Brisingamen. Enchanted by its beauty, Freyja asked to buy it, but the dwarves wanted something more. They demanded a kiss from the goddess. Freyja agreed, and the dwarves gave her the necklace, which became one of her most treasured possessions. However, Loki, ever the schemer, stole the necklace and caused a great commotion in Asgard. Freyja's determination to retrieve it showed her fierce loyalty and love for the things she held dear. The prophecy of Ragnarok. The final tale in our journey is one of endings and beginnings. Ragnarok, the great prophecy of the end of the world, foretells a time when the gods and giants will clash in an epic battle. The sun and moon will disappear, the seas will rise, and the great wolf Fenrir will break free from his chains. Odin will face the wolf in a fateful duel, while Thor will battle the serpent Jormungandr. Though many gods will fall, Ragnarok is not only a tale of destruction, it is also a story of renewal. After the chaos, a new world will rise from the ashes, and the surviving gods and humans will rebuild, bringing hope and harmony once more. The story of Baldur, the shining god. Baldur, the son of Odin and Frigg, was beloved by all. He was known as the god of light, beauty, and purity. His presence brought joy and peace to Asgard, and his golden hair shone like the sun itself. But even in the brightest light, shadows sometimes lurk. One night, Baldur began having disturbing dreams of his own death. These dreams filled him with fear, and his mother, Frigg, was deeply concerned. To protect her son, Frigg traveled across the world, making every creature, plant, and element promise never to harm Baldur. Fire, water, earth, metals, animals, and even stones, all swore they would do no harm to the shining god. With these promises secured, the gods felt relieved. In fact, they even found amusement in Baldur's newfound invincibility. They often played games where they would throw spears, rocks, and arrows at him, laughing as everything bounced harmlessly off. But Loki, the cunning trickster, was not amused. He grew envious of Baldur's invulnerability and decided to test the limits of Frigg's protection. Disguising himself as an old woman, Loki approached Frigg and asked her if there was truly nothing in the world that could harm Baldur. Frigg, thinking nothing of the conversation, admitted that there was one small thing she had overlooked: a tiny sprig of mistletoe, too young and weak to pose any threat. Loki's eyes gleamed with mischief as he learned this secret. He crafted a slender arrow from the mistletoe and returned to the games where the gods playfully tested Baldur's invincibility. Loki handed the mistletoe arrow to Hodur, Baldur's blind brother, and guided his hand, whispering, "Why not join in the fun?" Unaware of what he was doing, Hodur released the arrow. It flew straight to Baldur's heart, piercing him. The light in his eyes faded, and he fell to the ground, lifeless. A terrible silence fell over Asgard. The gods were stricken with grief and disbelief. Frigg's cries echoed through the heavens. They sent Hermod, another son of Odin, to Helheim, the land of the dead, to beg the ruler of the underworld, Hel, to release Baldur. Hel agreed to release Baldur, but only on one condition: every creature in the world must weep for him. The gods traveled far and wide, and everything in the world shed tears for Baldur, everything except for one giantess who refused to weep. Some say this giantess was Loki in disguise. And so, Baldur remained in Hel's realm. His death marked the beginning of the end, the first sign of the coming of Ragnarok. The story of Frey and the Sword of Summer. Frey, the god of fertility, prosperity, and sunlight, was one of the Vanir gods. He was known for his kindness and his role in bringing bountiful harvests and warm summers. One day, Frey climbed onto Odin's throne, Hlidskjalf, which allowed him to see all the worlds. As he gazed out, his eyes landed on a beautiful giantess named Gerd. She was standing in the frosty lands of Jotunheim, and her beauty took his breath away. Frey fell instantly in love, but his heart grew heavy with longing. He knew that the only way to win Gerd's heart was to send a messenger. Frey's loyal servant, Skirnir, agreed to help, but he demanded a reward: Frey's magical sword. This was no ordinary sword. It was a weapon that could fight on its own, slashing through enemies even without a wielder. Despite knowing its importance, Frey gave the sword to Skirnir. Skirnir traveled to Jotunheim and found Gerd. At first, she refused his offer of marriage, but after much persuasion and a hint of magic, she finally agreed to meet Frey. Frey and Gerd were united, and their love brought warmth and joy to the worlds. But giving away his sword would come at a great cost. Without it, Frey would be left defenseless during the final battle of Ragnarok. This tale reminds us of the sacrifices we make for love, and how even the gods must face the consequences of their choices. The binding of Fenrir. Fenrir, the great wolf, was the child of Loki and the giantess Angerboda. From the moment of his birth, Fenrir was destined to bring chaos. He grew at an alarming rate, and the gods of Asgard began to fear his power. In an attempt to control him, the gods decided to bind Fenrir with chains. They approached him with heavy iron fetters and asked if he would allow them to test his strength. Fenrir, confident in his power, agreed. He broke the chains easily. The gods then forged even stronger chains, but Fenrir shattered those too. Finally, the gods turned to the dwarves, who crafted a magical ribbon called Gleipnir. It was made from the sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, and other impossible things. Though it looked thin and fragile, it was unbreakable. When the gods presented Gleipnir to Fenrir, he grew suspicious. He agreed to be bound only if one of the gods would place their hand in his mouth as a sign of good faith. Tyr, the god of justice and bravery, stepped forward, knowing the risk. As Fenrir struggled against Gleipnir, the ribbon tightened. Realizing he had been tricked, Fenrir bit down, severing Tyr's hand. Bound and furious, the great wolf was left to wait for Ragnarok, when he would break free and unleash his vengeance. This story speaks of courage, sacrifice, and the delicate balance between order and chaos. The tale of the mead of poetry. Long ago, there was a magical drink called the mead of poetry. Whoever drank it would gain the gift of eloquence and wisdom, becoming a master of poetry and song. But how did such a marvelous mead come to be? It all began with a truce between the Aesir and Vanir gods. To seal their peace, they spat into a great cauldron. From their combined saliva, a wise being named Kvasir was born. Kvasir was the wisest of all creatures, and he traveled the world sharing his knowledge. One day, two dwarves named Fjalar and Galar killed Kvasir and collected his blood. They mixed his blood with honey to create the mead of poetry. Whoever drank this mead would be blessed with wisdom and poetic skill. The dwarves later gave the mead to a giant named Suttung in exchange for sparing their lives. Suttung hid the mead in a secret chamber, guarded by his daughter, Gunnlod. When Odin heard of the mead of poetry, he decided to steal it. Disguising himself as a laborer, he tricked Suttung's brother into letting him drink the mead. Odin spent 3 nights with Gunnlod, who allowed him to drink the mead in return for his company. After drinking all the mead, Odin transformed into an eagle and flew back to Asgard. Suttung chased him, but Odin made it safely home and shared the mead of poetry with the gods and worthy humans. This story reminds us of the power of knowledge and the lengths one might go to obtain wisdom. The apples of Idun. Idun, the goddess of youth and fertility, was the keeper of the golden apples that granted the gods eternal youth. Without these apples, the gods would age like mortals. One day, Loki and the gods were traveling when they encountered a giant eagle. The eagle, who was actually the giant Thjatsi in disguise, demanded a meal. Loki, ever the trickster, agreed to help the eagle in exchange for safe passage. However, Thjatsi tricked Loki and captured him. To gain his freedom, Loki promised to lure Idun out of Asgard with her apples. Loki returned to Asgard and told Idun about a magical orchard just beyond the gates. Curious, Idun followed Loki and was promptly snatched by Thjatsi. Without Idun and her apples, the gods began to age rapidly. Realizing Loki's treachery, they forced him to retrieve Idun. Loki transformed into a falcon, flew to Thjatsi's lair, and found Idun. He turned her into a small nut and carried her back to Asgard. Thjatsi pursued them, but the gods set a fire that consumed the giant, saving Idun and restoring their youth. This tale speaks of the importance of life's vitality and the balance that must be maintained to preserve it. These Viking myths are more than just stories. They are windows into a world of wonder where gods, giants, and magical creatures live side by side. They teach us about bravery, sacrifice, love, and the cycles of creation and destruction. As you drift off to sleep, let these legends carry you to a place of peace and imagination. If these stories have brought you comfort or sparked your curiosity, consider subscribing to our channel. Join us for more relaxing journeys into mythology, history, and the timeless tales that connect us all. Thank you for watching, and may your dreams be filled with the magic of the ancient world. Sleep well.